My first waiver wire suggestion, it's twofold. Either Dario Saric or Jonathan Kuminga from the Golden State Warriors. You have Draymond Green, suspended 5 games. Steph Curry's also out, I would assume for roughly the same amount of time. Dario Saric in the Wolves game that Draymond got ejected from had 21, 4, and 4 with 2 steals in 32 minutes. Game last night versus OKC, Saric had 12 points, 4 assists, 3 rebounds, and a block in 24 minutes. Kuminga looked better than Saric. Kuminga had a great game against OKC, 21 points on 13 shots, got to the free throw line a good amount, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, and a block. Golden State has 3 games next week. Shannon, if you had to pick between one of these two guys, where would you go, or does it depend on your league?
Yeah, it definitely depends on my team build, my league, my needs. If I'm going for the moon and I want the higher upside, then I'm gonna pick up Kuminga. If I want something safer, guaranteed long-term value, surprisingly, it's Saric. Dario Saric has been very solid, has a much bigger role off the bench for the Warriors than I expected this season. I really expected most of those minutes to go to Kuminga, and based on his ADP, I think most folks in the fantasy world did. But I still love Kuminga's upside.
All right, I'm going to jump into my first pick. Very familiar name on the waiver wire, and that's Duncan Robinson of the Miami Heat. He's rostered on 46% of Yahoo teams. I should say first, though, if you like our videos, please hit like and subscribe below. Anyway, back to my first pick. Duncan Robinson of the Heat. Miami may have found their Max Strus replacement, which is funny because Strus was supposed to be their Duncan Robinson replacement. Now Strus is with the Cleveland. Robinson has started the last 4 games, and over those starts, he's averaged over 20 points, 4 rebounds, 3.3 assists, and 3.8 triples. 3-pointers are why you get Duncan Robinson, plus 1 stock a game. The Heat have 4 games next week, and Robinson qualifies as both a guard and forward on Yahoo. Gotta enjoy these Tyler Heroes out games while you can. Good week to stream Duncan Robinson.
Shannon, where are you going on the waiver wire first?
We're going to Washington. Bilal Coulibaly, the rookie top 10 pick. What was he picked? 7th overall? Does that sound right?
Something like that.
Yeah, number 7 overall in the draft.
Trade with the Pacers too, so it was kind of a weird swap thing.
Yeah, number 7 overall. Wemby's former playmate. Coulibaly has been very good for the Wizards over the past few games. In the last 3 games, 31.7 minutes off the bench, 13.3 points, 7.3 rebounds, 2.3 steals, and 2.3 3-pointers made. He is on a bit of a heater, 70% from downtown over that stretch, but a top 50 player over the last 7 games. He is only 32% rostered on Yahoo. Coulibaly, he has diverse skill set, can give you defensive stats. I just think he's a solid streaming option. And how many games we got? We got 4 games for the Wizards next week. I love him. I love him as a pickup. And as Alex pointed out to me yesterday when we were discussing our segment, Coulibaly is beefed up. He's getting yoked. He looks a lot different than he did in France last year. He's enjoying the American food. So,
they can do one thing right in Washington, and apparently it's powerlifting. Playing basketball, not so much. My second pick is going to be Dyson Daniels of the New Orleans Pelicans, 17% rostered. Pelicans have 4 games next week, and since Daniels has joined the starting lineup, he's averaging 11, 6, and 3 with 2 steals. For McCollum and Trey Murphy, who are both still out, them returning next week to me would be like a best case scenario. I don't think it'll happen, and the thing is, even if it does,
teasing Murphy for a while. I've got him stashed in a bunch of leagues. Like,
even if there's a 10% chance that those guys return, they're not going to play their full minutes this week, and there's 4 games, so you're kind of insulated from that by rostering Daniels, who is going to be good in both points and category leagues because he can stuff the stat sheet. Ken, who's your second pickup?
This is a stash, and we talked about this in the news, but the number 2 overall pick in this summer's draft, Brandon Miller of the Hornets, has fallen below 50% roster levels on Yahoo. Now, that's because, 1, he's been dealing with an ankle injury, and 2, there's this Miles Bridges news. But I love Miller as a stash until the 20-year-old figures things out. Look, Gordon Hayward is going to get hurt sooner or later. Hayward's playing out of his mind, which is great. I'm happy for him, but he cannot stay healthy. This Bridges situation is horribly frustrating, and I think they'll quickly learn there's no future there, him on that 1-year deal. Look, Charlotte badly needs Brandon Miller to develop, and they really should be forcing him his minutes. Anyway, I'm just recommending him as a stash if someone's grown impatient with the rookie.
Shannon, who is your second waiver wire pickup?
I was torn suggesting this player, and I don't feel terribly confident about it, but I feel like the past week it needs to be mentioned. Cam Reddish for the Los Angeles Lakers. He is currently in their starting lineup, and he started 4 straight games. Over that stretch, 30.8 minutes, 15.3 points, 2.8 steals, and 2.8 three-pointers as well. Shooting a ridiculous 53.7% from the floor and 52.4% from the three-point line. Cam Reddish, has been a top 40 player over the past 7 days, mostly because of those steals and three-pointers. The Lakers they have a 3-game week next week. I don't expect this Cam Reddish thing to be long-term, but for as long as he's in that starting lineup, playing 30 minutes and producing, he's a streaming option. So if you have a roster that needs a streaming option, especially if you need steals and threes, Cam Reddish is an option to consider.
My long shot this week, long shots actually, Jacob Gilyard of the Memphis Grizzlies and Brandin Podziemski of the Golden State Warriors. Gilyard's still only 3% roster, or about that much. Podziemski's up to 20%. Gilyard for Memphis has started the past 3 games and has even more upside now that Marcus Smart projects to miss time. He's averaged 10, 4, and 4 with 2 steals and only 1 turnover in 26.3 minutes. Only saw 21 minutes in the latest game because they got blown out by the Lakers. Has ranked 83rd in per minute value, and for his career per 36, 8.2 points, 6.8 assists, 3.8 rebounds, 2.0 steals. He's a guy I actually went to pick up in multiple leagues last week, but I had bids in Fab like Skylar Mays or somebody else that ended up basically canceling out the one for Gilyard. And as far as Brandin Podziemski goes, we all know Curry's out. We're supposed to get an update probably this weekend about Curry. So if you have Sunday waivers, keep an eye out for that. If Curry's going to miss another week, fire in Podziemski, who's looked very good. Chris Paul has sung Podziemski's praises. I heard they're calling him AirPods. That's a lot easier to say than Podziemski a million times. Past 2 games for Podziemski, 18, 7, and 4 in 32 minutes per game. Ken, who is your long shot?
My long shot is someone we've repeated earlier on the show, but Goga Bitadze of Orlando. He's only 17% rostered, despite being the Magic starting center. The Magic have 4 games next week, and Bitadze is now getting more minutes than Mo Wagner. Hey, per game rank in 9 category leagues over the last 2 weeks, Bitadze is a number 49. He ranks 49th in per game value. He's shooting 60% from the field, 80% from the line. Better rotisserie player than fantasy points league player. Bitadze out there in 8 out of 10 leagues. Go get him.
Shannon, you have a long shot for us.
Yes, going to Miami. Triple Soft J, or the real Triple J, Jaime Jaquez Jr. for the Miami Heat. Over the past 4 games, even though he's only started 1 of these 4 games, he is averaging 34 minutes per, 14.5 points, 14.5 rebounds, 3.3 assists, 1 steal, and 1.5 three-pointers. Every time he steps on the court, he just brings a good energy for the Heat. I love his skill set. He can do it all. I think he's a solid streaming option. We've got the Heat have 4 games next week. His role, I think, will be in flux. He is a rookie, but it's super encouraging. He was in the rotation already before Hero got hurt as well.
Yeah.
I do see a path if Lowry continues to show his age, where Triple Soft J, Hero are both in the starting lineup alongside Butler. It might not happen in the very near future, but Jaquez Jr. is worth a look if you're cool with up and down play and second half of the season upside.
Yeah, I love this pickup. Jaquez is like the perfect Miami Heat player. Does a little bit of everything. Okay, we also have a drops section now. Sort of answered the question about Markelle Fultz earlier about knee tendonitis. I think if you're in a 12-teamer, maybe you can let him go. Anything deeper, probably hang on. We also continue, and I get this question with Nick all the time. What do we do with Jabari Smith Jr.? Shannon and I were in disagreement on this. I think last time we did this podcast, I am still on my stance that I believe he is droppable. What do you think, Shannon? Do you still think he's a hold?
I've changed a little bit. Yeah, I think last week I said I would even hold him in like 10-teamers. That's not the case anymore. 10-teamers, he is certainly droppable. For 12-team leagues, depending on the depth, I still think he's a hold in most 12-team leagues. It kind of depends on your roster build and what you're fighting for. If you have a roster where you would be better off streaming the flavor of the week, then do that. If that's going to lead to more contributions for your team, but if it's just a guy who's going to be on your bench for most weeks or most nights, if it's a daily leagues, then I would keep Smith because I believe he still has far more upside than most players that are available on waivers.
Now, the Pistons only have 2 games this week. If you're in a 12-team league, time to give up on Jaden Ivey?
You should have given up on Jaden Ivey like after the 3rd game, maybe.
I mean,
I think though. I mean, you probably spent some draft capital on him. People probably don't want to.
We are in a shallow 12-team points-based league, and I dropped him right away in that league. Probably the first fab period that ran. It just depends on league size, league depth, but I do think we're going to see a change to the Pistons rotation. There's been a lot of buzz about it recently. There's a good chance Monty Williams might do something that surprises Pistons fans, but I expect Ivy to be a bigger part of the rotation moving forward. That said, like 10-team, 12-team leagues, like Alex's suggestion, he probably should have been tossed away already. Just that first sign of like, oh, okay, it looks like Ivy's going to be playing 25 plus minutes per game now, every game. That's when you want to scoop him up.